Hello and welcome to the demo. I'm Solan Liu, the director of Digimango Smartware and the creator of this XML ETL suite. Today I'm going to do a demo on the actual product. But before we go ahead, I just want to ask you a question. What defines a good or outstanding data integration product? I think it can be summarized in 3 words: fast, complete, and easy. I just wish you to remember these 3 words all throughout the demo, because you will realize that Digimango XML ETL suite is outstanding in all these 3 areas. That's why it will become a game changer in data integration in all industries. Before you move on, I hope you have seen the other demo, which is a PowerPoint slideshow of the whole product. Now let's roll. So this is the main user interface of Digimango XML ETL suite. So we are going to open the Db2Xml mapping specification. Remember, the engine is fully generic. It doesn't know any database or any XML whatsoever. So we use this mapping specification to tell the engine exactly what to do on a particular ETL task. So imagine you are IT manager and you hired a capable senior software developer to cut code to generate this XML. So what are you going to say to this developer? First, you're going to say, well, the source data is in this database. So this OLEDB connection string tells the engine to connect to a particular database. And then you're going to define the data source. You say run this SQL query to get back a result set, and I'll call it country state. You can call it anything else. And run this SQL query and call the data vendor. And run this query and call the result set vendor contact and purchase order and order line. So up to here, you told the programmer where the data come from. And then from here onwards until the end, it is equivalent to an XML schema definition. It's highly similar in syntax. All it does is to tell the engine, this is the XML I want you to create. So you can see the root element of the XML is called purchase orders. It's got a country and state. So each XML file contains a purchase order of a particular state. It's got a vendors element, has multiple vendors. Each vendor you got some details and the address, and a vendor can have multiple contact persons. And then a vendor have made multiple orders. Each order you've got this order details and the employee who handled this order and shipment method, and finally the order line. Multiple order lines, and each order line has got the product details and quantity, price, and line total, etc. So you can see this is a reasonably complex XML. The data source is actually the AdventureWorks sample database provided by Microsoft. So as you can see here, you're not telling the engine anything more than you tell the senior programmer. You told the engine, here is the data source, and here is the XML I want you to create. And how does the source map to the XML? We use relational entity attribute. So here we map the root element to the country state data set, and we map the vendor element to the vendor data set. We map contact person element to the vendor contact data set, order element to the purchase order data set, and order line element to the order line data set. That's all you tell the engine. So the engine is as intelligent as a senior software developer. You just tell the engine this minimum amount of information. The engine will be able to go away and figure out the millions of micro steps to achieve this task. Next, I'm going to show you the actual source database. This is a Microsoft VentureWorks sample database, and these are all the tables that provide data to generate that XML. So now with this XML ETL suite mapping specification, all we need to do is to run it. So we say Db2Xml generate single, and it's asking us where to save it or existing file. Done. As you can see, the generated XML is exactly as what you ask the engine to generate. So the root element is purchase orders, and each XML file is regarding orders in a particular state. You have multiple vendors. Each vendor would have multiple contact persons, and then you got multiple orders. Each order have handling employee, shipment method, and multiple order lines. We all know that a constantly changing environment is a norm in an organization. So what happens if further down the track the source database has some changes? For example, some columns have been renamed, added, or dropped, or the target XML data structure needs to be changed. So I'll show you how easy and quick it can be done using Django XML ETL suite. So let's go to the original mapping spec. As you can see here, we're not directly creating the XML from tables. Instead, we provide normal SQL queries. So this level of indirection allows us to adapt to changes or hide the changes in the source database. For example, if a field is no longer this field, is from a different table and different column, but we don't want to change the XML or the mapping, all we need to do is to use the S. For example, we say as ordered state or something like that. So we can easily adapt to the changes in the source database. Now let's do some change on the target data XML data structure. For example, we don't want this intermediate contact persons element anymore. We want the contact persons to be directly under the vendor element. All we need to do is to delete it. Alright, let's make another change. Let's, for example, change this product element to product details element. Then let's regenerate the XML. Now let's generate the XML again. And let's save it on top of temp2. Done. As you can see here, there's no contact persons element anymore, and multiple contact person elements are directly under the vendor element. And let's go to the order line. You can see it's now called product details instead of product. So let's go to the original XML, and you can see there was indeed a contact persons element, and it used to be called product element. So you can see here we spent only 1 minute and we changed the target XML data structure. If you hired that senior developer to cut the code to generate this XML, now when you need to do this change, maybe that person has left, so you hire another contractor and he spends 3 days looking through the code and then do the change and get it thoroughly tested and deployed. It'll take you probably a week. But now you spend only 1 minute. So that's the power of dgMango XML ETL switch. I know what is your next question. I can hear you asking, do I have to handcraft this whole mapping specification? The answer, luckily, is no. In this B2B transaction scenario, you would have agreed on the XML data structure to exchange with your business partner before you start to create this ETL process. So, and sometimes the XML is an industry standard XML format. So you start with having XML schema definition, or DDT, for example. So now I'll show you how to generate this mapping specification from the XML schema definition. Go to Tools, Generate Mapping Spec from XML Schema or Data. So we want to generate a Db2Xml mapping spec. We browse for the data format. Before I click this button, I'd like to show you what is the XML schema definition. So if we double click this, basically, as you can see, the root element has a purchase orders. It looks quite familiar, country, state, and vendors. And then you have a vendor, and if you click this vendor, you get vendor details and contact person and order, etc. Let's go back to the ETL engine, and we say generate mapping specification from the XML schema definition. Now let's save it on top of this, place it. So now, you can see the bottom part is exactly what you've seen in previously. You start with purchase orders, country, state, vendors, etc. And this data source is a bit different. So the engine just created some sample data sources for you. And all you need to do is to rename it to whatever you want to call it. You replace the sample SQL query with your query. and then here you add an attribute called relational entity. Then you add in the name of the data source you just created. So as you can see here, you can finish configuring. All you need to do is to create the 4 data sources that you've seen in the previous mapping specification, and then you create 4 attributes to map those data sources to the XML structure. You create one here, and you create one here, contact person. You create one here, map order. Then you create one here. So you could imagine it can be finished within half an hour. So that's all you need to do. You've got a brand new XML schema definition that you need to generate from your database. And in half an hour's time, the ETL process is ready to run. Now I'm going to start the second demo, which is to show you how to upload an XML data file into a target database. So let's open the Xml2Db mapping spec. As you can see here, the XML data structure section down to the bottom, this is identical to the Db2Xml mapping spec, because now you're telling the Xml2Db engine, here is the XML data structure that I want you to extract. At the top of the mapping spec, it's a little bit different from the Db2Xml mapping spec, because now here the relational entities are stored procedures instead of the SQL queries. So basically, as you can see, you're mapping the root element to this import vendor store procedure, and you're mapping the contact person to this import vendor contact store procedure, and order to this import order store procedure, and order line to this import order line store procedure. Now let's do the actual Xml2Db ETL process. So we say, let's first delete the data from the target database. And by the way, I'll show you the target database is this database, the VentureWorks target, and the data structure, as you can see here, is very, very different from the source database. Let me show you the source database data structure again, so you can see they are very, very different. And I'll show you the store procedures. For example, import order store procedure. It simply inserts the parameters into a table. That's all it does. So now let's run the Xml2Db ETL process. Xml2Db upload a single XML. Now let's select the temp XML data file, which we just generated in the previous Db2Xml demo. So now it's processing, finished. So now let's have a look at the tables in the target database. Let's have a look at orders. You can see we just uploaded 907 orders, and let's have a look at the order lines. Let's get rid of this top 1000. As you can see, we just imported 2,500 order lines, and that's in 2.5 seconds. And again, you don't have to handcraft this XML2DB mapping specification. You can go to Tools, Generate Mapping Spec, select XML2DB mapping spec. Then you browse for the XML schema definition. Then you click Generate Mapping Spec. And you can see this part XML data structure is generated for you, and with 3 sample store procedures. And all you need to do is to replace these store procedures with your own ones, and then map them to different structures using the relational entity attribute. You can also generate the database script, which we call DDL script, from this mapping specification. So go to Xml2Db, generate DB script from mapping spec. We support 2 databases to automatically generate the DB script. So select SQL Server, generate, save it. Now you get the script to create the staging tables and those store procedures, and inside the store procedures it simply insert the parameters into the corresponding staging table. I'd like to point out that the engine does not know those staging tables. I mean, these staging tables. The engine also doesn't know what the store procedures do within their implementation. All the engine knows is I'm talking to a store procedure, and it has so many parameters. So in other words, if this behavior to insert the store procedures parameters directly into the staging tables, if such behavior is not what you want, then you can simply drop those staging tables and you delete such insertion code. And then within the store procedure, you can do whatever complicated data processing. Sky is the limit. So this is a strength. This is one of the patented points of our Xml2Db engine. That is, it is able to integrate arbitrary data processing logic into the ETL process. Now, in the third demo, I'm going to show you how to use the DigiMango data integrator engine to extract data from the source database, which is AdventureWorks database, and upload it into the AdventureWorks target database in one go. I'd like to show you first how different the two databases is in their data structures. So this is the source database data structure, and this is the target database data structure. You can see they have very different data structures. Now let's open the integrator engine's job configuration file, which is sort of similar to the mapping spec, but more integrated. As you can see here, the integrator engine does not reinvent the wheel. All it does is it passes on this Db2Xml mapping spec to a Db2Xml engine and asks that engine to extract data from the source database and generate an XML. Then, without saving the XML into a file, it directly hands the XML over to a Xml2Db engine and give this Xml2Db mapping spec to that engine, so that the engine knows how to upload the XML into a target database. I'll show you that this Db2Xml mapping spec was exactly the Db2Xml mapping spec that we used in the first demo, the Db2Xml demo. And this Xml2Db mapping spec is exactly the one that we used in the second demo, which is the Xml2Db demo. Now let's start the integration process. So now data is being extracted from the source database, going through the XML pipeline directly into the target database. Finished in 20 seconds. Now let's have a look at what are in those tables in the target database. First, let's have a look at the order table. Let's get rid of this top 1000. You can see there are 4011 orders that have been migrated across. They are all the orders in the AdventureWorks source database. Now let's have a look at this order line table. You can see from here there are close to 9,000 order lines. You see here is the checkbox called Save to XML files during integration. If we tick this checkbox, then when the data goes through the XML pipeline, it will be intercepted and saved into XML files before they are uploaded into the target database. So let's delete records from the target database. Now the target database is empty. Then let's start integration. Now let's look at the folder where the files are supposed to be saved. And you can see they are being created first as XML, then zipped. Finished in 22 seconds. So let's have a look at the target database and see whether they are the same. So this is the order line table. Rerun the query. You can see still close to 9,000 order lines. And then let's unzip this zipped XML files. Let's have a look how much data is contained in this file. At the left bottom of the screen, you can see the total size is 7.5 megabytes. Therefore, you can see the integrator engine migrated data which are 4,000 orders and 9,000 order lines between two databases with very different data structure in 22 seconds. I think in all the three demos, I have successfully demonstrated to you that the XML ETL suite is very easy to use and very fast. In following other demos, I will demonstrate to you how completing feature the Digimango XML ETL suite is. But for now, bye. Thanks for seeing this demo.